Are you the best footballer in the world right now?
I think so, yes. In my mind, I'm always the best. I don't care what the people are thinking, what they say. In my mind, not just this year, but always, I'm always the best. I'm always going to say that.
Welcome to Level Up Talks. No matter how far away your goal is, disappointment and frustration are binding you, there is always hope. There is always the one who cares, the one you love. There is always a way to level up.
So we're going to talk about how we're going to start a podcast.
Oh, yeah, we should actually start that. That's a great idea. I had this all in my head of how this works.
Welcome.
Yeah, no welcome. But why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure.
I think, that way people get to know you, right?
Sure,
They've started to get to know us a little bit.
Yeah.
And
right, that's true. Yeah.
You know, you're coming in now, and it would be nice to have some context of what you might say. So,
who is Morgan?
Who is Morgan? And where'd you come from? Where'd you go?
I'm a lost boy.
Where are you heading?
I'm like the littlest hobo. I walk from house to house. So I'm a Kingston resident. The company Black Sheep Thinking was inspired by my mom calling me a black sheep and encouraging me that I was different because I thought differently in a special way. And so my business was designed to help people think differently so they can radically accept their happiness. I think that most people are struggling with being stuck in something. And if they are, then the only solution is to think differently. We don't believe in medication or unless it's really like last step requirement. And we think that most people just need emotional intelligence training to live a happier life if they're not there already.
Can you tell the story about why your mom was calling you a black sheep?
Yeah, I want to go a little back, a little further than that.
So my background, I used to joke we had to save up to be poor. And so when I started building a success and escaping that, I used to sleep on a bed with like springs poking out of it and an Arctic sleeping bag that was a military issue. So if I rolled over, I could slice my leg. And, my father ended up being disabled in the military, so there's not much of that there. My mom didn't hold down a job because we moved following postings. And social media didn't exist, so if you moved every 4 or 5 years, that stability of community just wasn't really there the same way as we moved. So, just escape I remember being able to see out my walls, the cracks in the wall. Yeah. You could see outside on a winter day. And so they couldn't afford much heat, just enough to make the pipes unfrozen. So
where'd you go to school?
Lots of different places.
Did you move around?
Yeah. But I spent a lot of time in like Trenton and Petawawa. So mainly Ontario.
Was that hard as a kid, like to move around a lot?
I got bullied in a lot of places as a kid. So I lived near a reserve and being what I represented with my skin color there, it got me picked on a little bit, which I can understand. But I think it was actually kind of more exciting to escape something and you get a chance to reinvent yourself, you think. But then, what is reinventing yourself? It's just, I think you take yourself with you where you go for the most part. Mm-hmm. And so you start to, grow and learn. And I think you become a more rich person when you meet more people. Right. And so I think it was great, a blessing there because it was like, you're in school, you meet more people, so you're constantly changing your environment. And I think that prepared me for what I would go through as adult, meeting people and
changing your environment,
right. Being afraid of risk and those things. Yeah. So, I liked it. It was kind of nice that way.
Only child, or
no? I had a sister who had bacterial meningitis and a brain abscess at the age of 4.
Oh wow!
And she needed brain surgery, and they said there'd be a small percent chance that she'd be able to walk again. And miracles happen. So she walks. I actually coached her on her grade 9 basketball team, and she's fine. She's an accountant.
And you're into basketball. We've talked about
basketball. Yeah, love it. I played it when I was a kid. Yeah, I made it all the way to almost making it.
What does that mean, really?
My aunt was a very successful woman, and as a Christmas gift, she would give me basketball camps as my gift. So I'd go for 1 week, and I went to different camps like Olympia and Huntsville, which is really amazing fun. But a more serious one was like 5-star camps for Nike, and then Syracuse, the Orangemen throwing it. and I was offered a red shirt position, which is kind of like the Rudy role. If you've ever seen the
Oh
movie,
yeah,
Rudy.
yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Cry every time.
Not me. Not me. Until they cry every time when they're handing in.
Yeah,
Rudy
yeah,
pretty much
yeah,
spoil alert.
yeah. Oh right.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah. If you
The
haven't seen
movie's like
Rudy,
30 years old.
Yeah.
35.
Yeah.
It actually
It's a
inspired me to
classic.
go to university. It actually inspired
Did
me. Well, because if this kid who's facing all this adversity,
Mm-hmm.
so, and the
That's
adversity
why
I was
I cry.
facing was
Right.
Yeah.
you need to act like you need to act like a leader.
Yeah.
You're an All-American. I think I am, coach.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I after I kind of got done. Where were we? Sorry.
Black sheep.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, the tapping.
Yeah.
Yeah. So go all the way back.
Yeah.
A conversation of ADHD.
Welcome to our world. This is what we always do.
You start off here,
Yeah.
go all over the place. You can edit
It
that
keeps it
whatever.
interesting.
Yeah. That's the way it should be.
Yeah. So, anyways, I love basketball. Yeah, but black sheep thinking came about because after I got through that and I started building success and escaping that kind of area in my life, I always wanted to give back. And we were at a Seeing is Believing tour with the United Way, and I heard a man and a woman talking about the lack of dignity in the services, and I just wanted to help. And so I went over and said, if I could donate anything here, what would you want? And the answer right away was toilet paper.
Right.
Which,
yeah, you do the toilet
which
paper
dropped
campaign.
my jaw. Like, dropped my jaw.
Yeah, I think
I meant dropped my jaw.
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
Dropped
Yeah, it was
your
jaw
drawers.
dropping.
Yeah, that's
That's
what I was.
Which
I was
actually
like,
is ironic.
well, exactly. That's what
toilet
I.
paper.
That's
Yeah,
why I think your
exactly.
mind might have been going.
Maybe
there,
it's
right?
like toilet paper. It's a weird commodity, though. We don't
Yeah.
think of giving it. We think of food.
We don't think of it as a value either. We don't
don't.
think about it as a like.
I mean, we do as a luxury item. Studies show that it's the number one thing you take on an island over
Yeah.
food and water. So when they do those things, but
Yeah.
we don't really. We
Not
don't
on an
think of
everyday
it.
basis.
Yeah.
So,
You're 100% right.
geez.
Yeah, you never think, what if we run out of toilet
We
paper?
need to be reminded of that more.
Yeah.
That stuff
We do.
more often.
Yeah, that's gratitude right there.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm.
So
That's
once
a good
again,
topic.
So that-
your mom was calling you the black sheep.
So when I did that, my mom, she called me. She said, "I can't believe you inspired not just the town, but as it started to leak across Canada in small pockets." She said, "I can't believe what you've done. It's you're such a black sheep." And I was like, "Mom, that's the outcast of the family. Already feeling like I didn't fit in for all my life experiences and how I thought." And she said, "Black sheep have rare wool, so they're never taken for their mate. They live long and luxurious lives. Your mind is your wool." And so that was kind of what
That's
sparked.
interesting. Yeah.
That
That's
was
cool. It's a
I
good
love
story
that
too.
so
It is
much.
nice.
I
Yeah,
love
it's
it.
nice that my mom.
I love
And
it.
it's like nice save, Mom.
Yeah. Hey, sometimes
But
that's
she doesn't. She doesn't recall that. She doesn't
Yeah.
recall it the same way. She's like, "Wow, went far with that." But it just sparked something inside of me
Right.
that
Well,
I
that
knew
yeah.
I was special and different as a kid. We all are.
Yeah.
Like we
But
all are.
I didn't. This kind of adversity of I don't fit in, but I want to be different. And so it's.
So how do you help people figure that out though? Like
How do
I
you
mean,
help people fit-
like how did you
understand?
figure it out? Someone told you that
I
you
think-
were special in a way, or
No,
was that as a
no.
result of?
I think through all my past, for those who haven't heard me before, I go through my past traumas, everything from abandonment with my father to flatlining at KGH, losing my formative years, my abusive stepfather, my bullying in high school while I was dealing with learning disability, and then in my last year of high school getting assaulted by 3 boys, all culminating, and then always having hope for more.
Yeah.
And then
That's
finally
the key.
achieving
It's
it,
the hope.
finally getting there, finally having a life that I only thought on paper would be peace of mind. We all say, "I'll be happy when."
Yeah.
And then some of us are fortunate enough, or maybe unfortunate enough, to
Right.
achieve
That's
that
true.
"I'll be happy when," and then you're like,
Live there.
wait
now.
a second, I'm not happy, and there's other issues here. And I started to realize that success often could feel like failure, so it had nothing to do with what happiness was. And I think somewhere along the path of being incredibly broken.
Can you go back to that, because that
Sure.
just hits home for me currently right now?
That's
Success
like
can
failure?
feel like
Like
failure.
failure.
Yeah. So if you look at like a normal curve, when you look at it,
I want to hear a story,
You want to hear a story about it?
a personal story about
About
where
how
you've
success feels like
where
failure?
you might have, right?
Sure.
Because I mean, we can pontificate on
Oh,
all that
here's
stuff,
a
but
really
I think
simple one.
a lot of people want to hear. Okay.
Yeah.
What are you going through? What have you went through?
Yeah, so here's something that everyone can relate to that's like simple because it's not complex. It's the little moments where you think you're achieving something, and so
You just knocked me back, Shannon. When
Yeah.
I'm like,
get
hog of the table.
big oak tree. He provides good shade.
Yeah.
I think that when I was younger and I started getting in the business, and you're struggling in every business you start off in, right? you're just trying to make it work. I was driving a Pontiac Sunfire.
Yeah.
And as I made it work, I just kept the Pontiac Sunfire. There was no reason to upgrade a car. It was paid for. It was practical. I was saving money for a home. And people would say to me, like, what's wrong with you? Don't they pay you in Kingston? And I was like, yeah, but I'm saving money. I'm doing the right thing as a financial planner. And they're like, you need to buy a better car. And so
Interesting.
they called me roller skates because they said that's how I got to work.
Right. That's
hilarious.
It was. And I laughed because it didn't bother me. It wasn't
Sure.
bullying. It's just ribbing with guys. And, you know.
Well, because you knew you could financially afford a different car. It had nothing to do. It just wasn't your priority.
But then I became a recruiter, and I was driving downtown, and I saw a guy in a suit and tie, sweating his butt off in the summertime, doing something for charity. And I went over and asked him why he did what he did. He said, I want to make a difference. I said, if you do really well at your job, how much can you give? A year? I said, yeah. He said, maybe a couple $1,000. I'm like, you can do that a day with what we do. Would you ever consider coming and talking to us? So he did. He was on dialysis, and he had a very successful career, which is tough to do when you have kidney failure. And and he had a successful career in finance. So I thought I had a recruiting strategy.
Yeah.
So I go downtown another time, like a month later, and I pull over in my Pontiac Sunfire, and I had the same conversation with a young lady, and she said, "Can you do?" And they both asked if you could do okay for yourself, you do well financially, and yeah, you could. You work hard. It's a very lucrative business. And I said the same thing to her, and she said, "So I could drive a car like yours?"
Wow.
And so I started to realize that there was a school where like people were talking around town that I can't. He's not doing very well, obviously, or he could have a nicer car. So I went out and bought a very reasonably priced Cadillac CTS. It was only 2 years old, and I paid a song for it. I bought it off a hockey player in Ottawa.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, I watched people look at me like, "Who do you think you are?"
Yeah, it goes both ways.
So success feels like failure. That's a perfect opportunity where it's like, here I had nothing, people were judging me. Here I had what would be deemed as success in the eyes of people, and they're like, so it really is an interesting thing. And that's just an example from a tangible thing. There's things that you'll deal with in the form of stress, right? Like James Brett, who owns a salon in town.
Sure.
I heard he was a great leader for his staff, and he took me out for a drink because I was asking him, like, how are you helping your staff? Because I have 17 staff, and sometimes I'm losing sleep over them. And he told me something very beautiful that it's always resonated. He said, when I had no money when I first started, all I did was worry about money. And then I built up my salon, and I had sustainable business and became successful, and all I did was worry about money. So there's another example where people will tell you that success feels like failure. Different reasons, but it's this, like, is there still stress there? You think
I was kind of thinking about screwing up with my kids all the time and knowing that actually at the end it's actually not as bad as I thought. You went a lot deeper than I I was like, I don't know. I've been married for 11 years, and sometimes there's a lot of, rain in those days, and then they make the sunny days better, right? That's something that I've realized, certainly. So sometimes when you're going through those hardships in your life, those are actually what make those good days even better. Gives you that perspective that you need.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I think it is all perspective for sure, right? It's one person's version of something is different than somebody else's.
Is it
right?
okay? Is it okay for people to have different perspectives?
Absolutely, it is.
Like, do we have to
have the same perspective?
Yeah.
I don't think there's one perspective, but I do believe there's a better way, like a concrete way to deal with something versus coping strategies. So we talked about that before.
But but not to go off that topic, because I feel like it's segueing, is that do you have to agree to move forward and to not care what you think? Like, and I don't know if that's coming out right.
What do you mean by that?
But why do you have to agree on a specific topic in order to...
I don't think you don't. I don't think it's that. But I would say that I would say where there's a right and a wrong is, like I said in my last talk, you were there. Thank you.
Yeah, it was great.
Thank
you. It was really, really good.
It was a lot of fun. And I said that some people, I'm at a talk, and I did a talk, I was talking about anxiety and stress, and someone said, here's how I deal with anxiety. Is that the right way? And that's not for me to judge, right? Because we do have different realities. We go through different experiences. But I think two things. One is, I'll say in the second half. So the first thing I said was, does it work for you? And they said, yes. I said, does it work permanently for you? No. Well, then you have a coping strategy. You don't have a solution. So I think there are solutions to problems. There's lots of things that could help, but there is something for someone that would allow that to not be an issue.
To eliminate it.
Completely.
Yeah.
And so, for example, I was just talking to someone that was talking about the past. We're talking about two perspectives. So I just posted that you can't enjoy today until you let go of yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And a lot of people liked it, and great, and whatever they get out of it. And I wrote a little blurb. But one woman wrote from a friend of mine, but I am who I am from my past.
Okay.
Which is actually called determinism. That's saying the cause and effect. It's like, because I went through something and I position it. And if you treat your life like this chronological story, then I can see that could be very like alluring, because it starts to give purpose to certain things. But it's very dangerous too, because one is, it's saying that what you came from is what you are today, which doesn't hold water if you think that if everyone was abused by their father, would all turn out the same, because that would be cause and effect, and that's not true.
Well, that's about how you internalize it, right?
Well, then that doesn't give credence to saying that where I come from is who I am, or I learned from my past. Because
But something I've always done is been grateful for all those shitty things that have happened in my past, because they do form who I
would
am
agree
today.
with that. Yeah.
So, like, I look at it just slightly different, in that, like, of course I am a result of what happened in my past. That doesn't mean it has to dictate in a bad way my future. I mean, quite frankly, it could be completely removed, like maybe what you're saying, but I choose to actually use it as a
I agree with
position
Morgan
of
too,
strength.
though, because I think a lot of people hold on to their past so much that it doesn't allow them to move forward, because they're
but
so
that's
stuck
a
in maybe
good
victim mode,
Yes,
where
thank you.
they're
Yes,
like
that's exactly.
really reliving it over and over, and you can't fix that. But
Is
for
it
your
only
point,
is it only if you're living in victim mode that
Yes.
you shouldn't hold on to
I
your
agree.
past?
That's
But
Let's think about that
yeah,
for a second.
no, I know
Yes,
that's what
because-
that's a good chat.
What do we really learn from the past? Like, let's say, for example, I was abused by my last partner, and I learned from that maybe I can't trust, or that I need to be more cautious, or not so open, or make people prove themselves. Do you think that framework is fair to carry forward to your
no,
next
but that's because
relationship?
you've internalized it in a negative light.
Okay,
Right.
so what if
So
I
if
said
you
it's not
flip the-
about me, and,
Yeah.
and I become naive and I get abused again, and then maybe I'm hard on
But
myself?
what if
that's
you
like-
flip that perspective, and instead of looking at it like that, you look at it like, I learned what I like and I don't like in a relationship. I learn what I can tolerate in a relationship. I also learn that that person is the way they are because they're modeling behavior from the person before. Maybe their dad was abusive
Right.
to them, and that's why they're modeling it back, or they saw their mom and dad fight with each other, and that's what they're modeling. And you learn that, hey, I don't have to internalize this, because their issues are their issues, and not everybody is going to be like them. And that's what you learn from that incident and carry forward. So I think it's just your perspective on those incidents. If you're taking something negative and carrying it forward, it's bad. And if you're taking something positive and carrying it forward and learning to grow and develop and become a more whole person from it, then it's good.
So that was what you're just articulated very well, was what Freud believed. Freud believed that we were based off our past, and we carry forward, and we learn good or bad, and we take it forward with us.
Sure.
And so what Adler's representing in this new school of thought was called Theology, which is not super new, obviously. It's been around for a long time, but it's the concept
the
that...
new school.
Well, it isn't.
No,
helping
I know what
people
you're saying.
live so what it is living... You do learn a small amount, but I think a lot of people spend too much time analyzing what others do, which is assumptions.
Is there a difference from living in the past and learning from the past? Like you
Yeah,
saying, are
yeah,
you saying
yeah.
don't stay in
Yeah,
the past?
yeah.
You can learn from it, because of course you have from all the upbringing that you had.
Yeah,
You
and-
shared that.
And the only reason I share my past is to help people understand that, like, I've experienced pain. So, because people
But
want to learn from people.
Therein
they've been
lies,
through,
I
Yeah.
think,
But
what
I don't hold on to any of that stuff. I never did hold on to my past. It was actually
not good or bad though. All right.
Well, what does that mean? Like, okay, so let's go through it again. So if
Yeah.
I deal with the situation, the next situation that I learn from won't be the same context. It won't be the same
No,
context.
but
Okay.
there's some similarities.
It won't matter though. But if I'm just saying the risk. I'm not
For sure.
arguing
Yeah.
that there's not. Some people see it that, and we're talking about perspective. Some
Yeah.
people see it from
Yeah,
the
yeah.
past. This new way is living in the moment, understanding that you can take a small amount from who you are, right? Because you're growing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you're growing future thing. Like, that's why the front window of a car is larger than the rear one. You don't spend a lot of time looking in the back
Or
window.
poor design.
You maybe take a glance here and there.
Or
and
poor design.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. The car drives itself now, so who cares?
I mean,
I think for me to live in the future, like not to live in the future, to live in the now,
Yeah.
I'm seeing the now through my filters. So everybody has their own filters. So I've got all of my past has created these filters that allows me to sit here and either, if I had no water growing up, no toilet paper growing up,
Yep.
then I'm going to really appreciate toilet paper. I'm going to have more gratitude for toilet paper because that's one little tiny filter that's put on in front of me, one lens. So if you don't attribute anything from your past to your current state, I don't think you can live in your current state in gratitude without all those filters building up and being there.
Like, I want them.
And
I want them.
Adler's argument is that
Yeah.
you'd actually have no filters because the point is that you would be living in a
In the
set
now.
where you wouldn't be pulling something from your past. So let me give you a little more context on that
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
So
It's fascinating.
So yeah, it was really neat when I started understanding more. So the concept is there's no such thing as trauma because they look at any past event as something that you quickly move on from because what you're focused on is how you perceive your now. And so you just talked about lenses, but imagine there was no lens. You were just perceiving it from your true self in the sense that what am I experiencing versus what have I experienced? And so as humans, we look at the past to try to figure out things and we try to use that information. But that can be daunting and limiting in a lot of ways because like you said, maybe you have too much gratitude for toilet paper, and we've talked before about like different concepts of having too much of something where it can be unhealthy, both extremes. So the middle balance seems to be you learn a short amount from who you are. Don't make assumptions about other people because you could assume they come from a bad past and probably accurate, and that makes sense. But I think what Adler was saying is people become what their goals are. So I'll give you an example.
Well, sure.
I'll give you an example.
I agree with that all day long.
A boy never leaves his home because he was abused by his parents, so he never leaves his home, and he becomes a recluse. What if you were his parents? How would you treat this kid if you were his foster parents, whatever? How would you treat him? What would you be concerned about?
Well, I'd want him to have a future.
Yeah, and so you would probably pay a lot of attention to him, tell him he's okay, and so one day he's going to leave the house, and if he decides not to be a recluse, he's not going to feel special anymore because he's just like everybody else. He has to go out and live his real life. So all that attention you're giving him, he has to give away. And so his goal is to keep that attention, so he remains a recluse and never lets go of his trauma. And I say that over and over again. Not somebody who's using past information to predict future goals and using it almost as not as an excuse. It's real for them. But it's how they're perceiving where they're going. The people who get past traumas or get past hardships often realize that the future has nothing to do with the past, that they can make a decision to change instantaneously.
Yes, I would agree with that I would agree with that statement on its face.
Yes.
Like that you can make a decision in a moment to change your life if you want to.
And so I've heard from
Right.
like Gary Vee mentioned something, I think he worded it so well. What people learn from their past when they say, I need to learn from my past, they usually learn the wrong thing because it's through your lens, like you said, right? And it's a lens that might be in that paradigm. And then what you're carrying forward could actually hurt you, and that framework could hurt you because it's not the same context. Like, good luck if you leave a woman for a reason or a man, and you go and you have to find that exact same woman or man somewhere else for that context to make sense. And so
It's hard for me to wrap my mind around.
It is a little bit cerebral.
to say that I have to let go of all of my experiences. I believe in living in the now.
Yes.
But to suggest that I don't use my past experiences for good, I can't get that. I'm not. It's not that I can't, but I'm not there.
But I love this
the
conversation though
is good.
because I've never thought about it.
And that's
Nobody
why I think
has
it's
ever
great. It's two
challenged me on
sides,
that, so-
and there's no right or wrong. Like
Yeah,
if it's
no,
working,
for
if it's
sure.
working for you,
That's the
Yeah.
important thing too. I
Yeah.
think that message has loud and clear is you don't have to agree.
if
But
it's
having
working for you.
but having the conversation is the healthy part.
Yeah.
And I always
Because
say,
I have
if
never
it's
thought
work-
about this
never-
before.
I always get
Yeah.
concerned that people double down on what's broken because their ego. And so that's why I like the add-on of there's no right or wrong. There's only right or wrong for you, and you have to question, is it working for you? If it's not, here's another alternative.
Right.
And that's what Black Sheep Thinking was about to start with. It's not like here's the right way, do what I tell you. It's here's an opportunity if you're not if it's not working
Yeah,
perfectly.
that's the first question you have to ask yourself, right?
I mean, I do believe
happy.
Rhonda Byrne's in her book, The Power, says there's a statement in there, and it says, why do you think you have to take these negative past events with you?
right.
You don't have to.
Why? With people
That
think they
doesn't
need-
have to create your story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your purpose. A lot of people try to make purpose out of their pain, but here's the problem: we reconvict to that pain every time we rethink it. I don't anymore because it doesn't.
You're reinstalling it
I've
over
come to
and
peace
over
with
and
it
over.
in so
Me
long
too,
that it
yeah.
doesn't mean anything. It's just
Agreed.
words, which I feel sometimes like, should I be crying when I say this? No,
Yeah.
because it doesn't. When I found out that my father was the product of a rape, like I said, I didn't have judgment on him anymore. And and you do realize that people come from different spots. So why carry any of it?
Yeah.
Why am I using that? So when I'm just going to, real quick,
Yeah,
when
yeah,
you go back and reconvict on that pain in your
Yeah.
past, because you will usually,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's the problem with most
Yeah.
people. Not all, maybe you.
Yeah.
And the second part is your memory. And when you look at memory, how memory works, you're not remembering those events fairly. You're remembering the last time you remembered it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Scientifically,
No, I get
remember-
it. Yeah.
That makes sense.
And we start to shape and
it
eyewitness
probably
testimony-
shifts too, right?
You got it. And that's the
Yeah.
problem. The
Yeah.
eyewitness, and so either it becomes more painful for us
Yeah.
or it becomes something beautiful. But regardless, it just doesn't seem relevant when I'm
Right.
trying to go this way to keep
Yeah.
bringing whatever's behind me, even if I think it's gas.
Yeah.
And that for me personally, if you want to talk about what like the real things,
Yeah.
when I took that
but
story I
that's what-
told you, and I started to go through school because I went to college, university, and what motivated me to do that? No one's going to tell me what I can't do.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to put a chip on my shoulder, and anyone who gets in my way, who doesn't believe in me, I'm just going to just move on.
Right.
I'm just going to put my head down because who's going to believe in me? Those people didn't. They were supposed to love me, and so you start to. That was positive. I graduated college, university, and then you start having results in business, in life, and you think, I'm doing it. You're like, yeah, but you know what? You could have done it the same way and loved your way through it, and not been that your motivator. It's like push or pull goals. Last part, sorry.
No.
Push or push or.
Did you lay this out?
No, but like push or pull, and this is what we're talking about right
Yeah.
now. This is the push or pull. So when we look at something like you do in real estate, so mortgages is a very common topic. Some people see a mortgage as, oh my goodness, if I miss my payment, I'll lose my home. Other people see it as I pay my house, I own an asset. Those are the same things, but that's past and future. It's push or pull. And so the question becomes not about how we perceive it, right? But on how we perceive it, it impacts us emotionally, and does it create happiness?
So my question is,
Sure.
because sure, it would be nice if everybody had that way of dealing with things. How do you, if you're not in that place, get there?
How do you change your mind?
Well, how do you just say, screw the past? It's all there. I'm living in the now. It sounds like a beautiful thing to do.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist for the majority of people.
I think that what you just said is why it doesn't.
Sure.
Right? Because someone wants to say, no, it's... Jeez. It's okay. You want to pause that for a minute? See, I think what you just said is why it doesn't exist, but you look like you wanted to add to that.
No, go ahead.
So if you tell yourself, like, this doesn't sound practical, why? I mean, any option that you're not in,
Why doesn't it sound practical?
Yeah.
Because society set it up that way. Like, that's the pressure,
Right.
yeah. That's why it's not practical.
I would agree with that.
I'm not suggesting it from my own, like, I'm dealing with that own, whatever you would call that societal pressure. But I agree with the thought that wouldn't it be beautiful if we could just do that?
I think people forget that because people aren't living in a state of consciousness, right? We talk about this over and over again. They're living Groundhog Day, getting up, they're just wandering around like a zombie. They're not living conscious thinking. And I think when you start consciously thinking, you start controlling your emotions, controlling your thoughts. Tony Robbins had a really great video that he did with a lady who was suicidal, and he actually brought her in and out of the depression. So he said, I want you to get into that state, like exactly how you feel right now. I want you to go back to that period of time that you, like, what is it that you would normally be saying to yourself? And he actually made her verbally say, you know, I'm awful, everybody hates me, everybody would be better off without me.
Yeah.
She went through that whole self-talk, and you visibly saw her body go into that state. She started slumping over.
Right.
And then he said, okay, now I want you to think of something really amazing, something really beautiful, a really great vacation or something, and I want you to get happy. And she got happy.
Sure.
And he did this 3 or 4 times, and then he made her realize that, you know, you have a choice.
Control those thoughts.
Like, the minute you don't want to be there and you just say to yourself, hey, I want to go over here and I want to be happy,
Right.
put your mind into this, and that you have a choice.
So I think the real conversation here that could be valuable to so many people, because I live it, is that I get that. I agree with it, that school thought, that's my religion. However, I'm still prone to going through those negative thoughts of having a tough day, someone challenging
For
me,
sure.
whatever, because I think we all go through that.
Practice.
So what is it that you do? And it's having that, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, God darn it, people love me.
Well, I
and it
think-
sounds so stupid, but
There's
that
a
was a
lot.
beautiful skit
Yeah.
for a
Yeah,
reason.
it
Like,
was.
it was
Yeah.
sending a strong message.
But
And
you
that's
just
what this
dated
is
us, by the
talking
way,
about.
because probably half the listeners are like, what are they talking about?
Didn't you bring this up at your talk?
I did, yes.
The same thing?
Yeah, they
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
But it's
Because
true.
it is. There's
Yeah.
so I think that routine has a large part to play with it in
Yeah.
setting up the positivity of your day.
That's-
So that's what we're really talking about in
Yeah.
that aspect. Also, getting to the root of the problem. That's what I talked about at the beginning. We talked about right or wrong way. Well, the more correct way to deal with this is to get to the reason why you're not letting go. Why are you holding on to something that's unhealthy
Right.
for you? Why are you holding on to
Yeah,
something? If
absolutely.
you want something different, it's really hard to still second when your foot is on first. So we get in the spot where it's like, I can't let go.
Who's on first?
Say, third base. So it gets really challenging when we say we want something different, but we don't want to change our framework, our mindset on
Yeah,
it. So
yeah, that's the
it's
next question.
where-
Do you not like this? Are you willing to change?
Yeah. And how?
Yeah.
And when people say,
If you're doing
"It's
a
fine,
flow
I wanna
chart,
change,"
right?
But how? And so I look at things like, what are you afraid? Why won't you change? Well, fear is usually a major component of that.
Sure.
The stories we tell ourselves that we double down on, that we letting go of your past, it means, well, what am I if I don't have that?
Right.
Yeah.
What am I
There we
if
go.
I
Ding,
change?
ding, ding.
Yeah.
That's the big one right
that's a
there,
good
Morgan.
quote.
Yeah.
And so who do I need to be? And it's like whoever you want to be. Like, what do you really want? And then act that way. But people are so afraid.
So we have the power
Yeah.
to be whoever we want to be from this day forward.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Nothing.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. You have the choice. You have the ability to change.
So how do you change somebody? How do you increase somebody's EQ or from a buzzword?
Emotional
Yeah.
intelligence.
How do you change that? Because that's what we're talking about here. I think is
The first step is they have to want to change.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key. You can't change somebody who doesn't want to change. I spent a lot of years preaching to the wrong choir.
Yeah, people are often beat up and they get sick of it. And
Some people actually thrive.
So how do you deal with
They
that?
thrive
Because
off
I mean,
that.
I've had it in situations
as
where someone's
two
been so
people that
emotionally
probably love to help people,
Right.
and three people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you deal with like letting somebody go?
Like,
Do you know what I mean?
When they won't change.
That's right.
I've pushed someone to the point where, because when I was in my, and that's where things have changed for me from 30 to 40. In 30, I wanted to help so bad, I wanted to thrust it on them. To the
Force
point
it.
where someone wouldn't change, and I asked them to hold their hand out, and I put a lighter under it, and they went, ow! And I said, if you move this quickly from emotional pain as you do from physical pain, we wouldn't be here still.
That's a good one too.
Yeah. That was really
But that's not
We
really
need to light a
ethical.
lot of we need to light a lot of people on fire,
we
don't
do.
we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Metaphorically.
It's true.
But I've also learned in my 40s that there's a lot of hurt people out there, and that's why this is what you're doing is so great, because there's so much. We need this more now than ever. Yeah. And I'm now.
Do we need it more now? And why do you say more than now?
Now than ever? Because I think.
Or do you think
there's
more
an
people are
awakening.
focused
There's
on
more an
it?
awakening.
Like, more willing to.
We know we're not what we're supposed to be. We're starting to see the flaws of chasing certain things that aren't leading us to the outcomes we want, right? So we're all lost in certain areas where we're like, okay, this isn't working for me, why not? Like, I know women that are like, I just care about my family, and then they get older and they're like, what about me? Well, what about you the whole time, right? And so when they're aware of that, I think it's really like, here's the information, and whoever wants to reach out and take it, that's their commitment. So that's my difference between 30 and 40. Take it versus who wants it. And let them do their
Some
half.
availability is here for taking.
And the second half is like the burning thing is like,
don't apologize again, by the way.
I will never apologize again. Thank you.
Sorry for talking. Having a conversation that's
no, I love it.
energetic.
And
That's
so,
the way it's supposed to be.
yeah, I hope so. It's been great.
Yeah.
So, I forget now. You go.
See, that's the problem.
To go back to your point, I think a really important thing I learned in NLP was secondary gain. And a lot of people don't know what that is, but a lot of people are holding on to their problems and their traumas because they're actually getting something from it. And it's actually called secondary gain. So I'm going to give you an example of what it is. So my practitioner, Laura, at the time gave an example of a client that she had come in who talked about how she had PTSD. It was a severe form of PTSD. She was actually in the military, had a lot of traumas, legitimate ones, came in, dumped on her. And she said, I have a technique that can probably knock this out of you in, in a few sessions. We can get rid of this right away. And the girl automatically gasped and said, oh my God, no, I can't do that. What am I without my PTSD? I'm not going to get my paycheck. My husband will look at me differently. I'll have to go back to work. So she's actually gaining something from her trauma that she didn't even realize that she was doing. And until people get past that secondary gain, you can't help them.
Yeah. This goes back to what Adler said, which is we have these goals and then we take on our past to accomplish these goals. So her goal is, and it's not that she knows.
It's subconscious.
But I don't want to work. I don't want to be, I want to be special. I want to be different. I want my husband to look at me the same way. So I'm going to look at my past and interpret it in a way that lets me accomplish this goal versus seeing it like, okay, here's who I am, moving on to what's next, and not seeing it as a trauma or an impact or something that you need to shape yourself from, like my story, right? Because be careful of your story.
That's right.
It's really, I mean, if you think about it, again, we talked about the left and the push and pull. You can look at the same story and say, like, when I found out what my stepdad had been through, when I became the man that I knew I wanted to be, I wrote him and said, you're not the dad I wanted, but you're the one I needed to become the man I am today.
Sure.
So you can let go of that and move forward, because it's not, that knowledge doesn't serve me any more than that recognition of,
but I think, this is where I think maybe I need to look at a little more, but when you share that story, I think that is like so powerful and so helpful for what you're doing today.
Oh, thanks.
Like that experience and you sharing that. There's lots of people that have experience.
We all have a story.
Right? And we all do have some
Absolutely.
pain and
We
some
do.
challenges.
We're all
So,
hurt somewhere.
like, to know that, hey, Morgan has dealt with this.
Yeah.
I can deal with it too. Because sometimes people just don't believe. You talk about goals. I think belief is the same thing. We achieve what we believe.
Yes.
Goals, whatever.
So do you think the key is not internalizing it? I think that's the shift.
Yeah,
when
that's
you
a great
start
word.
looking at it and you say, you know what, this has
Let's
nothing
use
to
it.
do with me.
Yeah.
It has everything to do with them, and I wasn't abused because I was a bad boy.
Correct.
You know, whatever.
You don't carry with you. You
Yeah.
understand that was because you wouldn't. It's almost like a fluke, like when things happen. It's never someone's fault. So I think I love that you said that. Not carrying with you. Exactly. You're there. You learn from that situation very quickly. Who was I? Could I have done something differently? No. Like this time maybe I do this, but you don't. When you start saying this next time I'll act differently, that's where it's almost dangerous in a way. Where it's like when you learn about yourself, you should learn. Like I've learned I'm resilient from my past. That's about it.
Yep.
Like that I can bounce back from any situation. What does that serve me? Moving forward, I know I have the ability to focus.
In the moment, you can be resilient.
Correct.
Again.
Do you think it made you the
Yeah.
person that you are? I know, it's so great. Do you think it made you the person that wanted to help other people?
That's a great question. I think at first, when I was younger, my purpose and my pain were kind of aligned. And then what happened is I think it poisoned the purpose, right? Because even though you're doing good, there was a lot of self-judgment, no self-love, giving it all away. Like it just wasn't balanced. And then it became like, what would I do no matter what? It's like, who am I really? What do I really want to do to help people? And what am I good at? Like I kind of stumbled into black sheep thinking. For years, people said, you should be a speaker.
No, you've always been black sheep thinking.
Right. But I just didn't know it.
Yeah, right.
And then you kind of be like, what am I going to do? Well, with great power comes great responsibility. So I just decided, like, this is what I'll do. But now I'm not attached to it the way I was. Because when it was about my pain and it was about that, it was like there was an attachment and I would overexert emotion or something because I was like, I need this because I felt it and it's part of me and I know what it's like. And now it's like, whoa, it's not about you.
Yeah.
This isn't about you. Just go help and let whatever happens happen. So that's when people say, oh, it's really successful. I'm like, whatever. Oh, it's a failure today. Whatever. Like,
But
it's
if you-
just going and doing.
If you had have led a perfect life, so to speak, where
I
you
don't
didn't
know.
have the traumas,
Yeah,
you think you'd
I
want
don't-
to?
you
I
know,
think
that's hard to
traditionally, if you
say.
start looking
Yeah.
at all the speakers that
They've had a past. I think
They
that
have
what you're
story.
I'd
All
like to
those
see
things,
if there
yeah.
was.
What they
I'd like to
do.
see if there's some research. I'm sure somebody's
Oh,
done.
I bet you're right
there's
to
tons
say
of
that.
Well, how
research
else
on
do you?
it.
How else do you?
Well, how do you also know there's a problem?
Yeah, or
Yeah.
that
You
too.
know.
That
Like,
too.
If you live in the woods, you don't know how a traffic light works. If you
Yeah.
haven't experienced pain, you don't realize that someone should be doing something about it.
That's right.
So I think the difference is not so much. So I guess the answer to would be yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But the difference is not making it like my badge versus like
Right.
my work, because
Yeah.
that's what I was
Yeah,
kind of.
not labeled by it.
Well, it's more about work experience now and just doing what you know versus like I got to change it because it's like I don't want anyone and I don't make it about me. And I think a lot of people when they go to help someone, they feel it and they think that's their motivation. And I was so afraid to let that go because I thought maybe I won't care as much. And the truth is, I realized I was a caring person. It had nothing to do with my pain as a motivator. I would still want to make a difference in things I do. And so I think often we hold on to that thinking it's our fuel. It's not. It actually is. That's the chip on the shoulder or the overexertion of emotion or sometimes.
When
it's-
we started talking, especially it's because we've been pretty much on the same topic, really, which is kind of crazy.
Rare for us.
Yeah. I felt like you were on one end and I was on the other. Not in a real bad way, but just from a perspective
Yeah.
way. Do you think as a result of having this chat, we're closer together?
I think, 100%.
Like were we saying the same thing but different?
I think that from the very beginning, we were sharing two perspectives, and we just realized there's value,
In
like we
both.
always do.
Yeah.
Like we always do. We realize there's value in everything and it'll be up to the listeners to decide what will work for them. And I just encourage them, like I'm sure you do, is don't buy into what you already know. Like don't double down
that's
on
true.
what you're doing already because you think it works and you want to refuse to switch. I encourage people, and that's all I want is for them to say, I've done it your way. Have you tried it my way? And if you are happy with your way, like I mean truly happy, why change it? Don't fix what's not broken. But if you find it at some point in your life, in your journey, it's just not giving you the results that consistently, that you're happy some of the time, not all the time, that there's an alternative to being happy the majority of the time. Because I think even people ask me, like, are you happy all the time? It's like, yes, I am.
Are you?
Yes, because happiness isn't like incredible joy all the time. Sometimes it's contentment. Sometimes it's recognizing that something that isn't your fault, it's bad, will go away. And so I'm obviously I feel moments of sadness too, but in those moments I don't go where I used to go, which might be thoughts of suicide or depression or thinking,
I agree.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's
Totally
what I think happiness is. It's the control of the waves rather than constant
So
positivity.
there's no negative emotion. It's just a continuum of happiness, like 0 to 10. You can be zero happy.
No, I think
Is that what you said?
No,
No.
That's close, but no. That's the
We
exact
had this
opposite.
debate
Actually,
already.
yeah. What it is
Yeah.
what it is not. It's the waves instead of incredible highs and incredible lows.
Yeah.
It's more the middle with like smoother rolls. In other words, if something bad happened, like I get a flat tire, I'm not sad about it. It's just a moment. If someone in my life passes away, I recognize that. Unless it's a tragic event, I mean, a child or something like someone young. But if my 90-year-old grandmother passes away, I respect her life, and there's less sadness in it because this is the journey. And so, and then of course, happiness. I'm not super freaked out positive all the time because I'm not trying to be something for the world. I'm just realizing the contentment and peace is really what happiness and joy is about. So that's more of the middle for me. And the word middle or balance rather than, because I don't use middle as average. It's not an average life. It's a beyond average life, but the middle or balance of emotion where I feel whole. And so it prevents the fluctuations from happening, and it allows me to be the best version of myself shows up because I'm not afraid. I'm not angry. I'm not overly joyous and then let down by the fact that life is messy. And so finding that smooth spot, and again, it all comes down to how are we perceiving what we're going through? Because if we see everything as a threat, then we'll go into fight or flight mode. If we see everything as an opportunity.
I've always taken any time when I don't feel happy, if that's the word that we're using, bad, sad, whatever, upset, as an opportunity to reflect on the situation and learn from it. So I might be feeling sad because somebody took me from an 8 and said, maybe you're a 6. You need to level up in that area of your life. That hurt me a little bit, but at the same time, I'm like, thank you.
I found a new method recently because I used to do that too, but I would spend a lot of time in that past, like too long. And
I'm talking about in the moment. Like I'm talking like in the moment, right here and now.
You learn to move on.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, that comes from a positive place. All that kind of stuff. Even if it was negative, I'm like, okay, how do I take that and make it a positive?
I always am cautious, and I don't think that's a bad way. I think that's good depending on the person. I was told, and a great tip, which be careful of the feedback you listen to. If you want to become the person, then listen to them. If they're a role model and you want to live the same life as them, if not, be very cautious because you will become them.
True.
But there's a whole thing by Stephen Covey, The Whole Person, where it's body, mind, heart, and spirit. And this has been, I think, even Robin Sharma has some stuff similar to that right now. And so what I've started to recognize, and it was through when I saw Joanne from Touch of Wellness, she said, your spirit's broken. And I just had a lot on my plate, and I was like, you're right. And what did I do? I didn't focus on renewing my spirit that day. I went and took care of my body and my mind. So I read, and I actually put myself into a float tank and just did a float or spa day, whatever you want to do. The point is that recharged me. And that was one of the tips that I figured out from a friend because I was reading this work and I did this training course on the body, making sure every day or every week you're taking care of your body, exercise, nutrition, taking care of your mind, learning something new, spending time with people you love, your heart, and your spirit, meditation, yoga, religion, whatever works for you. Wellness, That's what we're doing, right? So when one of those areas is low, don't try to lift it up. Go to another one of the areas and invest in that, and it actually rejuvenates the other area.
Well, we talk about that even the connection of having taken more control over my physical health. It's definitely helped my mental health.
Oh yeah.
Even though I always felt like my mental health was very strong, very related, and if you focus, you can lift the others out by